You know, when you hear the word hypnosis, what's the first thing that pops into your head? A swinging watch, maybe? Some stage performer making a volunteer cluck like a chicken? Well, today, we're going to talk about the man who basically blew all of that up, Milton H. Erickson. See, he didn't just practice hypnosis, he completely re-engineered it from the inside out. He turned it from this battle of wills into a kind of creative collaboration. Let's dig into how he pulled it off. So yeah, let's just start with that big question. For most of us, our idea of hypnosis comes straight from the movies, right? It's this intense battle of wills between the hypnotist and the subject. There are direct commands, this almost magical forcing of change. It's super dramatic, for sure, but is it actually real? And this contrast, this is really the heart of the whole revolution. On one side, you've got the myth, the hypnotist, as this all-powerful mind-controlling figure. But Erickson, he completely flipped that on its head. For him, it was never a battle. It was a partnership. It wasn't about forcing something new onto a person, but about using what they already brought into the room with them. This was a radically different way of thinking. And that brings us to his single most powerful idea, the absolute core of his entire philosophy, utilization. Honestly, if you get this one concept, it's like the master key that unlocks everything else in his amazing work. Okay, so here's the crucial point. Whatever the patient does or says or feels, even their resistance, their skepticism, their anxiety, none of that is an obstacle. For Erickson, it's the raw material for the therapy itself. So instead of trying to fight a behavior or get rid of it, he would just accept it and then figure out a clever way to use it to get to the therapeutic goal. And you can really hear that philosophy in his own words, can't you? He didn't see his role as a director, barking orders. He was more like a facilitator. He wasn't there to impose his will. He was there to create an environment where the subject's own abilities could shine. It's just a profound shift from control to cooperation. So let's see how this idea actually works in practice. Because once you really grasp utilization, all of Erickson's seemingly bizarre techniques, well, they suddenly make perfect sense. These are methods that look like they're breaking all the conventional rules of therapy. First up, the ultimate example of utilization in action, using resistance. I mean, think about it. In just about any other form of therapy, a resistant patient is a problem, right? It's a roadblock. But for Erickson, a resistant patient was an opportunity. So imagine this scene. A volunteer sits down and basically throws down the gauntlet. You can't hypnotize me. They're defiant, they're skeptical, and they're even telling him why it won't work by bringing up this past failure. Now, if you're the hypnotist, what do you do? Erickson's response here was just pure genius. He didn't argue at all. He just said, "You're right. Tell me more about it. Describe that room where it failed." And as the subject got totally absorbed in remembering that memory, the details of the chair, the room, everything, their bodies started to relax, their focus turned inward, and before they knew it, their eyes closed. They literally entered a trance by trying to explain why they couldn't. He used their own resistance as the engine for the induction. Incredible. All right, if you thought that was clever, you gotta get ready for the confusion technique. The goal here is to completely bypass the critical analytical part of your conscious mind by simply overloading it until it gives up. I mean, just listen to that language. It's a total logical pretzel. Your conscious mind tries to follow along, it tries to make sense of it, but it just can't. It's designed to be nonsensical. And in that moment of confusion, when that logical part of your brain gets tied in a knot and essentially throws its hands up, a much more receptive state emerges. And it's in that space that a simple, direct suggestion can be accepted without any resistance. Now, Erickson didn't just deal with problems in the present, he was also brilliant at building pathways to a better future. And that's really the core of his rehearsal technique. He understood that hypnosis could be used to create and solidify new positive patterns of behavior, not just dig up old problems. This is so incredibly powerful. He would guide a patient to mentally live through a future success. So in this amazing case, he had an anxious patient basically tell the story of her successful therapy from the future, looking back on it as if it had already happened. By creating this memory of success, it becomes a tangible, achievable reality in her mind. She's already experienced it, so now she knows she can do it. So what does all of this add up to? Well, it leads to maybe the most important integration in all of Erickson's work. The idea that inducing a trance and actually doing therapy aren't two separate things. They are one and the same. The process is so elegant when you see it laid out like this. The problem itself becomes the doorway into the trance, and the very act of entering that trance resolves the problem. The resistant patient who goes into a trance by focusing on his resistance is no longer resistant. The problem and the solution are just beautifully woven together. And that really is the crucial takeaway. He wasn't just putting people into a state so that he could then start doing the therapy. The way he guided them into that state, by using their unique personality, their problems, their strengths, that was the therapy itself. So why are we still talking about a hypnotist from the 20th century? Well, because his ideas go way, way beyond the therapy room. What Erickson really gave us was a whole new paradigm for change. He moved us from a mindset of forcing and fighting to one of collaborating and creating. And his core principle is universal. Instead of just imposing your will, you first listen to what's really there. You observe the reality of the situation. You accept it without judgment. And only then do you find a creative way to utilize it. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Think about any challenge in your own life right now. A tough project at work, a strained relationship, a personal habit you want to change. What if you just stopped fighting against it? What if, like Erickson, you just accepted it for a moment and asked yourself, how can I use this? How can the obstacle itself become the way forward?